behind closed doors, in shadowed alleyways, through digital screens. It's been called the world's oldest profession. But what do we really know about prostitution? Right now, as you watch this video, millions of transactions are taking place. Money changing hands for intimacy. Bodies commodified. Lives transformed. Yet most of us know nothing about the reality behind the headlines. Tonight, we're pulling back the curtain on an industry that spans millennia and operates in every corner of our world. From ancient temples to modern cities. From survival to choice. From criminalization to legalization. This is the story they don't want you to hear. The voices society ignores. The economics they hide. The human faces behind the headlines. Welcome to Prostitution Exposed. To understand where we are, we must first understand where we've been. And where we've been might surprise you. Ancient Mesopotamia, 2400 BCE. Temple services weren't just accepted, they were considered sacred. Priestesses served dual roles as spiritual guides and companions, their work considered divine service to the goddess Ishtar herself. Greece and Rome elevated courtesans to positions of power. Greek hetairai weren't just companions, they were among the most educated, influential women of their time. Aspasia advised Pericles on matters of state. Phryne was so wealthy she offered to rebuild the walls of Thebes. But history tells two stories. Alongside the respected courtesans lived countless others, those forced into the trade, women trapped by poverty, victims of human trafficking. The contrast was stark then, as it is now. For thousands of years, society has struggled with the same question: is this empowerment or exploitation? The answer, it seems, depends entirely on the circumstances and who you ask. Then everything changed. And when it changed everything. The Industrial Revolution brought massive population shifts. Traditional social structures collapsed. And in that chaos, ancient attitudes toward this profession began to shift dramatically. Victorian England led the charge toward criminalization. The Contagious Diseases Acts didn't just outlaw the practice, they created a system of legal harassment. America followed with the Mann Act of 1910, making it a federal crime to transport women across state lines for immoral purposes. But here's what reformers didn't count on: demand doesn't disappear just because you make supply illegal. Underground networks exploded. Illegal establishments flourished. Police corruption increased dramatically. Violence became more common. Health and safety protections disappeared. By the 1900s, what had once operated in temples and regulated establishments now existed in the most dangerous margins of society. The same human needs and economic pressures remained. But now with violence, health risks, and legal persecution added to the equation, the criminalization approach had unintended consequences that made conditions worse for everyone involved. Fast forward to today. Amsterdam has regulated districts. Nevada has legal establishments. Germany has a regulated industry. 3 different approaches to the same ancient reality. But the real revolution happened through technology and the internet. Online platforms, content creation sites, and digital services transformed everything. The internet didn't create this industry, it changed how it operates. Some platforms have paid out billions of dollars to content creators worldwide. Suddenly, traditional intermediaries disappeared. Independent workers could control pricing, choose clients, work from safer environments, and keep more of their earnings. But every revolution has consequences. Digital platforms created new challenges. Online harassment became an issue. Privacy concerns emerged when content exists permanently online. Today's global industry generates an estimated $186 billion annually. That's larger than the GDP of many countries. Yet in most places, it remains largely unregulated, creating both opportunities and problems. Behind every statistic is a human story. And those stories are as diverse as the people living them. Consider Sarah, not her real name. A single mother who entered this work after losing her corporate job. She has a master's degree, speaks multiple languages, and earns significantly more than her previous office position. She makes her own choices about clients and working conditions. Then there's Maria, brought from Eastern Europe at 17 with promises of legitimate modeling work. For years, she had no real choices. She faced threats, violence, and coercion. She was told her family would be harmed if she tried to leave. Two women. Same industry. Completely different experiences of agency and choice. Advocates argue it's about personal autonomy and the right to make decisions about one's own life and work. Critics argue it's systematic exploitation disguised as choice. The reality? Both perspectives have validity depending on the specific circumstances. What research shows clearly, criminalization doesn't protect vulnerable people, it makes them more vulnerable. In countries where this work is criminalized, workers are significantly more likely to experience violence and have less access to health services and legal protection. So what approaches actually work? The world has become a testing ground for different policies. The Netherlands legalized and regulated the industry in 2000. Results included reduced violence, better health outcomes, and tax revenue, but also some increase in human trafficking as demand exceeded legal supply. Sweden took the opposite approach, criminalizing buyers while treating sellers as victims rather than criminals. Street-level activity decreased, but workers reported feeling less safe as operations moved to more isolated locations. New Zealand took a third path, removing criminal penalties entirely in 2003 while maintaining laws against exploitation and coercion. Research found most workers felt safer and more empowered, with no significant increase in people entering the industry. Germany treats it as regular employment, with taxes, health insurance, and worker protections. Results have been mixed, with improved working conditions but ongoing challenges with ensuring genuine consent and preventing exploitation. Each approach reveals the same truth: there are no perfect solutions to complex human behaviors and economic realities that have existed throughout history. This brings us to questions that challenge our assumptions. If consenting adults agree to exchange money for companionship and intimacy, why is this treated differently from other service industries? We accept that people can be paid for their time, emotional labor, physical work, and creative talents. What makes intimate services categorically different? But then come the harder questions: can genuine consent exist when economic desperation influences decisions? When past trauma creates vulnerabilities? When social inequalities mean certain communities are disproportionately represented in this work? The women's rights movement remains divided on these issues. Some argue that supporting women's right to choose this work is essential to gender equality and personal freedom. Others argue that the industry inherently reinforces harmful attitudes about women and relationships. People within the industry itself hold diverse views. Some advocate for full legalization and labor rights. Others support abolition, believing the work is inherently harmful. Many hold nuanced positions focused on safety and reducing harm while acknowledging the complexity of individual experiences. Perhaps this ongoing debate tells us something important: human relationships, economics, and ethics intersect in ways that resist simple solutions. After examining 4,000 years of human history and decades of policy experiments, what have we learned? This industry isn't disappearing. Every attempt to eliminate it has failed. It adapts and persists because it addresses human needs that transcend law and social disapproval. Criminalization consistently creates more problems than it solves. Violence increases. Health outcomes worsen. Access to justice decreases. The very goals that criminalization aims to achieve, reducing exploitation and protecting vulnerable people, are often undermined by the policy itself. Legalization and regulation bring significant benefits but also new challenges. There are no perfect solutions, only different trade-offs between competing values and priorities. Most importantly, the voices that should matter most in these policy debates, those of the people actually involved in this work, are too often marginalized. Policies are frequently made about them without meaningful input from them. Whether you view this industry as inherently harmful or potentially empowering, whether you support criminalization or legalization, one principle should unite us: every person deserves safety, dignity, respect, and protection from exploitation and violence. The research evidence is clear. The human cost of current approaches in many places is measured in preventable violence, health problems, and social marginalization. We can continue to base policies primarily on moral positions rather than evidence of what actually improves safety and reduces harm, or we can have honest, evidence-based conversations about what approaches best protect vulnerable people while respecting individual autonomy. This ancient aspect of human society isn't going away. The question facing us is, what kind of legal and social framework do we want to create around this reality? That choice affects real people's lives, safety, and well-being. The responsibility for making informed, compassionate decisions is ours.